It's your Catholic Drive Time
with Joe McLean and Emily Alcaraz.
Show for that podcast and is a frequent contributor to the stream. And Jason, happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and thanks for being a part of our program today.
It's great to be here. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas.
Praise be to Jesus. Now, I want to start with you left Hawaii and you came to the great People's Republic of Texas. What drove you to leave the beautiful state of Hawaii to come all the way to Texas?
Yeah, it's sad. We do. We see ourselves as refugees. The Democrat governor of Hawaii has just been totalitarian in the lockdowns. There are lines for food 7 miles long.
Wow.
Our economy is decimated. Waikiki in the evening looks like Haiti because, the tourists are gone for the most part. They're starting to trickle back from what my friends are telling me. But what you do see is the sort of the decay that had already been there. So there's a lot of, hooligans, and the sex industry is very visible. How bad our homelessness has always been is now really visible because it's all you see. The tourists are gone, so it's there. And they had these 14-day quarantines. Every time you come back, you have to be quarantined for 14 days. I travel up to the mainland about every 2 weeks. So we just had to make a decision. A friend of mine that was working in the state government told me in June that he saw the plan and that there would be rolling lockdowns until there was a vaccine. And if you don't get the vaccine, they'll continue to quarantine you every time you come home. Well, I have no plan on taking the vaccine. So in June, or late June, we decided we had to go. And it's strange now. We've been in Texas since first week of August, and we've been here for more of the lockdown than we were in Hawaii. And it seemed like forever when we were there. In New Braunfels, Texas, where we live, it's almost business as usual. Everything's open. My kids are doing horseback riding and swimming lessons and gymnastics. All of their activities in Hawaii are still shut down. So they still would, my kids still would not have been going to ballet or drama or swim, soccer, all of that. But since the day we arrived in Texas, they've jumped right back into their activities.
Wow. I used to live in Hawaii myself, and I remember the homeless being there, and there were many towns in California that were giving them one-way plane tickets to Hawaii. And we would sleep on the beach with the homeless at night because it was so perfect and beautiful weather. Everybody would hang out, but the tourist industry far outweighed that, so you didn't pay attention to it. But I can imagine now what that might look like and how sad that is for an island that depends so much upon tourist dollars, and how I don't know, dystopia that might feel to so many native people living there. Well, I'm glad you were able to get out when you could. What do you envision a day where you might go back? Okay, if we can go back to something that feels normal.
I'm going back in a couple weeks to give a speech, and I told my friends I'm not leaving Hawaii. I'm deploying to the mainland. And so one of the big things I've been fighting for, we're launching a new program. My organization, Hero, has two big programs, Movie to Movement and Vulnerable People Project. But we're launching a new program. It's called the Hawaii Food Security Act. Because of the transnational GATT 94 agreement, Hawaii, which once our biggest industry in the early 90s, up until the early 90s, was agriculture. So we were a state that fed the world. But thanks to President Clinton and the GATT 94 agreement, Hawaii was removed from global food production. It was just a decision that was made not by the people of Hawaii, that, pineapples and sugar and our ag vanished. It disappeared, as a major, it was the center of Hawaii life was agriculture. It was the center of our community, our culture grew around the agriculture industry. And then it was just yanked away. Well, there's something called the Jones Act. I don't mean to bore your listeners with Hawaii specifics, but the Jones Act, which I support, is designed to protect domestic shipbuilders and shipping. And so if a ship comes to the mainland, it has to go back to where it came from or another foreign port. So that means every ship from Asia goes right past Hawaii. And all the ships leaving the States goes right past Hawaii. So there's two shipping companies that basically have to provide us with everything, which inflates our costs 20-30%. And that 90% of our food comes on those ships because we don't have an ag industry anymore. So there's been attempts to make Hawaii exempt to the Jones Act, which, seeing that we're the furthest place in the world from any other place in the world, it would make sense for our food security and also for our national security, because Hawaii is the forward projection of power to the east. It's really a battleship. It's a battleship with some hotels on it. But we're not going to get an exemption to the Jones Act. Well, then I think we need to revitalize our ag industry. Seeing that the federal government took it from us, they should fund it. They should fund its revitalization. So what the Hawaii Food Security Act would do is move Hawaii from about 47 in ag subsidies to about 25. And in 12 months, we could be food secure. Right now, if the ships stop in 2 weeks, we begin to starve.
That's incredible. And I read the news every day, and it's just incredible that I don't see this anywhere. Who is reporting on this? Nobody. Jason, Emily here. I'm a refugee, not from Hawaii, but from Chicago. And God bless Texas. But another pro-life issue that people are not addressing that I've heard you speak about is the Uyghurs in China. So can you tell us a little bit about what you know about that situation?
Yeah, my organization's unusual. I had this idea in college. Before I was a Catholic, I was just a young atheist who I saw abortion as a human rights issue. And so I wanted to start an organization that worked to defend the vulnerable from violence, not as sort of quote unquote, what they call a seamless garment, which submerges abortion in a sea of prudential issues on everything from immigration policy to, what minimum wage should be. I thought I wanted to find an organization that worked directly to defend those facing violence. And so we work a lot with ethnic and religious minorities. About 5 years ago, I was approached by a gentleman who is now the prime minister in exile of Chinese-occupied East Turkestan. He approached me and said, what you're doing for the people of Iraq, can you do that for the Uyghur? And I didn't know much about the Uyghur. And at the time, the concentration camps were just starting to be built. Well, today, there's 3 million Uyghur, according to the Department of Defense. They're an ethnic minority, Turkic minority. Many are Christians. They were an ancient Nestorian Christian community up until about the 15th century.
Wow.
Now, they're overwhelmingly Muslim today. But there are 3 million Uyghur in concentration camps. They are forced into they perform forced labor for American companies like Nike, Coca-Cola, Apple, Costco. This has been well documented by the Wall Street Journal and many other publications. BBC has been great on this. Al Jazeera has also been great on this. Most people don't want to offend China. That's why if you've never heard of the Uyghur and you hear that there's 3 million people in concentration camps, their organs are being harvested. The women, of course, as we know, it's standard operating procedure in China, are forced to have abortions. They're also forced into marriages with Han Chinese. So it is classic ethnic cleansing and genocide. It's the greatest genocide of the 21st century. But because China wields influence in media, in politics, they're not talked about. Turkey has turned its back on their ethnic, they're ethnically related. Saudi Arabia, sort of the center of the Muslim world, supposedly has signed a deal with China to be silent on the Uyghur. And our Pope has only once gently mentioned the Uyghur. And in fact, in his Christmas Mass, where he prayed for every ethnic group in the world, the Uyghur were strangely left out. And this is what has happened.
Yeah, hold that thought, Jason Jones. I'm going to ask you to hold that thought. We're going to come right back from this short break. And just before the break, we were talking about the Uyghurs and the fact that Pope Francis has been practically silent on that, the atrocities that are happening to these Uyghur people in China. We've talked about it on a number of occasions with Steve Mosier and other people. But Jason, I want to pick up and touch on Pope Francis there for a moment on now. Argentina just passed abortion, and we were talking about this in the last hour. To see these massive crowds of people celebrating in the streets, painting themselves in confetti and all of this celebration for the right to take a child's life seems utterly atrocious. And the thought struck me, Pope Francis is from Argentina. He's never even been back there since he's come to Rome. And has he made a statement? If he has, I haven't heard it. What
Right.
say you, Jason Jones?
No, the first thing I did is I went and looked to see what Pope Francis had to say on Twitter, which was nothing. But this is a problem with the Catholic laity. It's the problem with Catholic education. It's been a problem, unfortunately, with our bishops, and it's something that the French anthropologist called victimism. And victimism is feigning concern for the vulnerable, for power and wealth and prestige. And how you do that is you talk about quote unquote groups that are victims that are actually powerful, and you abandon the truly vulnerable to violence. And Gerard said, actually, the catacon will happen when the last Christian apostatizes to victimism. What it is to be a Christian in your public life, it's to stand with those who are abandoned. When I was an atheist and read the gospel, what was striking to me, especially when you use your imagination, our Lord, the second person of the Trinity incarnate, associated with the prostitutes, with the tax collector, the abandoned, the vulnerable, the woman at the well, the ethnic minority. So who should we stand with? We should stand with the Uyghur. We should stand with the child in the womb. You know, our Holy Father, he had the NBA there to talk about BLM. If Facebook, Twitter, Google, the NBA, all the major corporations are front shelving an issue, I do not need to talk about it. I do not need to talk about it. I tell my friends, like my Uyghur friends, I can't wait for the day I don't answer your phone call, because you don't need my organization. I'm not here as a tribal partisan no, we as Catholics are to stand with the vulnerable, the abandoned, the forgotten. The child in the womb and the Uyghur are the most abandoned in the world. To imagine that today there are 3 million people in concentration camps. And I know that many people, when they first hear this, do not believe it. Like many Germans did not believe the rumors about the death camps. Well, what makes this really important to us as Americans is I am looking at my MacBook Pro as I talk to you, and I'm looking at my iPhone. Those were made in China, and Apple uses suppliers that now it has been proven use Uyghur forced labor, which is what is forced labor? It's slavery. They use Uyghur slaves who are ripped from their country, transported all over China, forced to work in horrible conditions. And I benefit from that. I benefit from that when I go to Costco. I benefit from that when I walk into a Foot Locker. All of us do. And it's sorrowful. So there is the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which I believe you've talked about before. It's on the Hill right now. It's passed the House. We need that. It needs to become law. Nike and Costco and Coca-Cola and Apple have spent millions of dollars lobbying Congress to kill the bill. Can you imagine? We as consumers need to know. We shouldn't have to, verify to see if our products are being made by slaves. We should count on our corporations to be our partners and making sure we're not exploiting slave labor. But instead, they're trying to kill the bill. So I think the first thing we can do as Catholics, this audience is very important when it comes to this. I think this can be the year those camps are closed. Can you imagine, as lay Catholics, if we led the way to getting the camps closed in Chinese-occupied East Turkestan?
Amen.
And we can do that. Bishop Barron has been silent, celebrity bishop, a bishop who used Catholic donor money, used the gospel, used our faith to build some celebrity notoriety that goes beyond being a priest or a bishop. Just like Joe, you and your crew, you in Guadalupe Radio, your supporters, they write checks to you because they want the gospel of Jesus Christ and the gospel of life. And your name and my name as a filmmaker, my films are funded by people who share our values. Then we need to leverage, bishops, the influence our voice has because we built it up by the gospel, by being associated with the church. We need to leverage every drop of our influence, our Twitter account, I would love to see Bishop Barron tweet in support of the Uyghur, Pope Francis tweet
Amen.
in support of the Uyghur. We need to leverage everything we have for these people and for the child in the womb. It is startling, the silence in Argentina.
We have 3 minutes left with Jason Jones. We've talked about this a number of occasions in past episodes. Cardinal Zen made it to Rome and was trying to get an audience with His Holiness Pope Francis, begging for help for the persecution in China, as well as for the Uyghurs, and he couldn't get an audience. The NBA got an audience. So we definitely think it's upside down world. But with 2.5 minutes left in our conversation, Jason, what do you look at for 2021? I know there's big rallies happening in Washington D.C. next week. How do you think 2021 will play out, especially from a pro-life perspective?
Okay, I'll be really quick. So in the United States, we need to work aggressively through our states. If there's a Biden presidency, I'll be in D.C. for the Stop the Steal rally next week. If there is a Biden presidency, there's a real opportunity there for us as Catholics. We must make noise every time Biden presents himself for communion. We can take this stumbling block of a Biden presidency and turn it into a stepping stone by forcing a crisis in the church. This man shall not be allowed to receive communion. It's a disgrace. Number 2, food insecurity. Biden is talking about a 14-week, year-long shutdown of our economy. If this happens, we will see a famine like the world has never seen. We must keep our economy open for us, for our freedom, for our families and our communities, but also because we feed the world. We process food and distribute food to the world. That cannot slow down. And number 3, we need as Catholics, I think we need to fight for the Uyghur Slave Labor Prevention Act. Why say never again every Holocaust Remembrance Day, which is coming up in a month? We say never again, never again. It's again and again and again and again, genocide after genocide. But unlike our great-grandparents who were living in the Depression and who had a daily newspaper at the best, working class, new immigrants, all of our, if I think about my family in the 30s and 40s, they didn't know what to do and they didn't have any influence even if they did. We know.
Yeah.
We know. So let's fight.
We are out of time. Jason Jones, thank you so much for being on with us today. We're very grateful, and hopefully we'll hear back from you next week after the rallies, and hopefully we'll have some good news for that. But Jason Jones, check him out at movieToMovement.com. It's a great place to go. But Jason, God bless you. God love you. Thanks for being on today.
Thanks, guys. Aloha.
God bless you. Happy New Year.
Thank you for joining us on Your Catholic Drive Time, where it is our pleasure to keep you informed and inspired.
Join us Monday through Friday at the same time, right here on your favorite Catholic radio station.
Don't forget to connect with us. Just go to facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Again, that's facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Be sure to share more than just us today. Share Jesus with everyone you meet.
Bye now, and God love you.